Hey, this is Lewis from SoFly, and in this video I'm going to give you an overview of where everything is in Oxygen. So firstly, once you've installed Oxygen, if you want to use it to design a page, go to Pages, Add New, click Publish, and once you've done that, you can open Oxygen by clicking Create Custom View. This is generally how you are going to get into Oxygen and start designing. So now we're inside Oxygen, and I will give you a tour of the user interface. So we have an Add button, a Save button, back to WordPress, some settings like page width, fonts, and a side menu. So I'm going to start by opening the Add section and adding stuff to our page. Now in the Add section we have fundamentals. These are things like divs, headings, images. If you know HTML, you'll know what these are and you'll know how to use them. Then we have the WordPress section. From here you can add a WordPress shortcode. You would just paste in the shortcode here. You often get those from plugins. And we have widgets. You can use every WordPress widget. Next we have reusable. Right now this is empty, but if we made a component reusable, like a header, we wanted to reuse it on many pages of our site, that would show up in here. Then we have components and design sets. Components are things like headers, footers, buttons, hero sections, basically pre-built components that we've already made that you can add to your site in one click. So for example, if I wanted to add this header, I would just click Add Component to Page. And now it adds this entire header. And this header is made out of the fundamentals here. So it's a section, and then it has an image in it, menu icon, menu items, etc. So this component's constructed out of the fundamentals. And then in design sets, we have, right now there are two, but by the time you're using it, there'll probably be a lot more. And in design sets, we have components and pages. Pages are complete pages, like a home page and about page. And components are just things like headers, footers. This is just all the components in this design set. You can go through them with the arrow keys, or you can just scroll down to see them all. Okay, so that's a tour of the Add section. I'm going to add a couple of components to the page, just so we have some stuff going on here in the sidebar. Okay, so I've added this big quote to the page in this people section, which maybe is appropriate for an about page. So in the sidebar, here, let's close that. In the sidebar, we have what's called the tree. The tree is basically a tree of everything on your site. You have the body, that's your entire page. Inside that, we have this big quote section. Inside that, we have text block. Then we have a div that contains a heading. Then we have another block of text. We have the image. Then we have the guy's name and the company he works for. And then in the people block, this other section, we can open it up and we have a div block which contains this and that. And then we have another div block which is going to contain these three columns. Inside each one is an image, and then another div with the heading, text, and the div containing the social icons, which are links. So that's our tree, and if you go too far to the right, if you nest too deep, you can just scroll to the right using your trackpad. So that's the tree. From the tree, what we can do is just delete something entirely. If we want to delete this right here, we could just click the X. We can also make it reusable, so it would show up in the reusable section. So let's say we thought we might want to use this big quote on other pages of our site. We'd make it reusable, call it big quote, and now that will show up in the reusable section once we reload the page. We can also duplicate it right here, and now we've got two of them. And we can wrap elements with a div. That's useful if, let's say, you want to put something inside a div. You just click wrap with div. And we can add friendly names to the elements if we want. person photo, just to kind of make it easier to know what you're looking at in the tree if you're designing a complex page. So that's everything you need to know about the tree. You can also search if you're just looking for headings. You can type in heading, and that'll filter by headings and their parent elements just to make it easier to find stuff. And if you want to just clean it all up, hit collapse all. If you want to see everything, hit expand all. So that's the tree. Next, we have style sheets. Style sheets are useful if you want to write your own CSS and you want it to be relatively complicated CSS. So for example, let's say I added a code block component, and let's say I pasted in some HTML I got from somewhere. Let's say I wanted to style this. Well, I could do it by writing CSS right here. Or I could style it by adding an entire style sheet right here. I could just call it my styles. And now I could just paste in big long style sheet, write my own code, etc. So you get the idea. If I wanted to add more, on hover, I could do this. And then when I hover, like that. Okay, so these are our style sheets. You can add as many of these as you want. Click the edit icon to edit it, or close the editor, and then click the delete icon to delete the style sheet. And next up, we have classes. This is going to be a list of all the classes on your site. These classes are there right now because we added these pre-built components. So the classes that these components use are automatically going to be added right here. So that's how the sidebar menu works. And now I'll show you the toolbar and the more section. This is how you're actually going to customize your site. So I will start by adding a section. And now I have a delete icon to delete the section, a duplicate icon so I can make more sections, and I have this selector box. By default, you're not editing anything. You could click it and choose to edit the ID, or you could add a class to the element. So if you just start editing it, it'll automatically apply the styles to the ID. So let's say I want to set the background color to gray, and I want to center everything in the selector box. Now those styles are going to be present for this ID in the CSS that Oxygen is going to output. If I wanted to add a class, I could do that. A class is used to group elements together. So for example, let's create a menu. So I'll add a div block. I'll set the div block to float to the right. And then I'm going to add a link into this menu. And I'm going to add a class to this link. I'm going to call it my menu link. Now multiple links can have this class. So anything I do to this class is going to apply to every element that has this class. So we'll duplicate this a few times. And now any styles I apply to this class are going to apply to all of the links that have this class. So I could make the links blue. They're all going to be blue. I could change their font. We have all Google fonts in here. Let's use Lotto. That's a good font. I could change the size. That's going to apply to all the links. Now, the most common parameters you're going to edit are going to be in the toolbar. For links, that's the color, the font, how bold it is, whether it's underlined. For divs or for sections, the common parameters are different. If you want to edit all of the parameters, you're going to go into the More section. In the More section, you can control literally everything. Background color, background image tiling, positioning. I'm going to add 20 pixels of padding to all these links. You could change the display setting of the link. Basically, every common CSS property you can find here. You could change the width. Now they're all going to be wide. You can edit all the typography settings, letter spacing. You can set borders. Go 1 pixel solid on all borders. Border radius. Let's get rid of that background color. That is really awful looking. And you can also edit your own CSS. So if I wanted to do something that isn't available in these sections, I could just write the CSS code for it myself. If I want to add a box shadow, for example, I could just type in the CSS code. And now I got my shadow. Now, if I'm editing the class of an element, I can't edit JavaScript, but if I switch back to the ID, now I could put in my own JavaScript. So I could use jQuery, for example, element ID is always going to be replaced with the ID of the element you're editing the JavaScript for. In this case, the ID is right here. So I'm just going to put this element ID, and now I could write some code for when the element is clicked. And now whenever we click the element, we'll pop up a box that says, hello, this is only going to work on the front end. So I'll save the page, and now let's take a look on the front end. So you go back to WordPress, and then you can click the permalink, and here is your page on the front end. And it doesn't work because I probably made an error in the JavaScript code. So we'll go back to Edit Page. Now that we've applied a custom view to this post, we're just going to click Open in Visual Editor. And now this is going to open up the design we just created in Oxygen so we can customize it further. So let's take a look at this JavaScript. We just click the link, go to the More section, go to the JavaScript tab, and I forgot to add a closing bracket, so I'll add that. And now we go back to the front end. Now it'll work. That is a pretty complete overview of where everything is in Oxygen. Let's see, what did I not cover? Oh, responsive styles, responsive styles. So the last thing I have to cover is responsive styles. So let's say we wanted to create styles that only apply when the browser is below a certain width. So let's say we create a menu. So I'll add a section. I'll put some padding on the section. I will add a div block, float to the right. This is going to be our menu. I'll add a text link. We'll call this my link. We'll make it blue. And we'll duplicate it a few times. Add some margin. Well, what if we want this menu to look different on a mobile device? So we're just going to click the responsive styles icon here. Right now we're editing the styles for all devices. Let's say we want to only edit tablets, let's say in portrait mode. So go less than 992, or really any tablet, 992 pixels or less. Now we're editing the styles for a smaller screen size. So let's say on smaller screens, we want these links to be maybe a little smaller font size so they fit a little better. Maybe reduce the margin a little bit. Now let's say less than 768 pixels, we actually want to just center this menu. So we'll go up to the div block. We could also do that in the tree. And then we're just going to go to position. We don't want it to float to the right anymore. We want no float. And we're just going to center everything inside the div by clicking center. So now at less than 768, everything's centered. Now let's say we want to go less than 480, like an iPhone in portrait mode. Now maybe we want these links to just be full width. So we'll click the link, and also whenever styles are present for something, that media query is going to be glowing. So let's say we add styles for less than 480. We will make these links 100% width, display as block, no margin, and 20 pixels of padding on all sides, and we'll give them a slightly darker background color. Actually, let's add a little bit of margin. Let's add 5 pixels of margin. Okay, and now we have our links on a mobile device. So now if we go back to all devices, they look like this. We go to less than 992, looks like this. Less than 768, like this, and less than 480, like this. So that's how to do responsive styles. And then one more thing I didn't show is states. For example, if we wanted to do a hover state. So let's add a link. We'll go back to the desktop media crate, all devices. And let's say we wanted to, for example, make this turn a different color on hover. So we'll make it blue like this. We'll just click state and choose the hover state. And now on hover, we're going to make it, let's say, a darker blue. Now I go to normal, it's like this, hover over it, dark blue, and that's how to do states. You can also add your own states. For example, if you wanted to, there are different things, like let's say you wanted to style the first letter, you can enter that. It works with any CSS, pseudo class, or state. Anyway, that should just about cover everything you need to know to design pages with Oxygen. That should give you a complete tour of the Oxygen user interface.